Let me speak plainly. If she fully understands you, she will never chase you. If she can map your thoughts, anticipate your feelings, and recite your next move before you've made it, you are no longer a man. You are a memory, gone before you've even left. Most men do not lose because they were cruel. They lose because they were available, legible, predictable. And what is predictable is not respected. What is fully known is never truly desired. Modern conditioning has taught you to be an open book, to speak your heart, to communicate honestly, to reassure, disclose, and explain. But Machiavelli would have laughed at this. He did not build his strategies on transparency. He built them on appearance, secrecy, and calculated revelation. He wrote that everyone sees what you appear to be, few experience what you really are. And that is exactly why they follow, because they are unsure, because they must guess, because they do not know what you are capable of. You, on the other hand, were trained to be clear, to be direct, to solve her problems, to be her therapist, her emotional safety net, her answer. But by becoming her answer, you kill the tension that creates desire. You remove all mystery, all gravity, all challenge. She smiles, she thanks you, and she never thinks about you again. Now let me ask you something brutal. When was the last time she chased you? Not replied, not acknowledged, but pursued you, mentally, emotionally, physically, like you were the fire she could not extinguish. The truth is, if she fully knows what you feel, what you'll say next, and how you'll react, she doesn't need to chase, because she has already conquered you. Do you understand now why being understood is a curse? Do you see why every time you clarified your intentions, you weakened your position? Why every time you expressed your longing without demand, you became disposable? Because there was no question left, no ambiguity, no threat. You offered everything on a plate and then wondered why it was never devoured. The men who are chaste are not the most giving nor the most expressive. They are the most incomplete, the most unreadable, the most inaccessible. Their silence becomes a riddle. Their distance becomes a drug. Their unpredictability becomes an emotional puzzle that she cannot solve, and therefore cannot forget. If you want to be wanted, you must learn this. Never become fully known. Always leave something hidden, not to deceive, but to dominate. Let her guess your limits. Let her feel your presence and still question your intentions. Let her touch your warmth and still wonder where your cold edge lies. Because once she believes she has you figured out, she has already moved on. There is no faster way to collapse a man's power than to become expected. Understand this. When she can predict you, she can replace you. The greatest error you make is not in being kind or even vulnerable. It is in being patterned. Repetition breeds comfort. Comfort kills contrast, and contrast is the root of attraction. Look at how nature favors danger. The wolf is feared because you don't know when he'll strike. The storm excites the senses because it arrives without warning. Power, real power, exists in the unknown. It is not found in routine, but in the ability to break it. And yet, most men become slaves to the very habits they think make them desirable. They reply on time. They validate on command. They behave as instructed. In doing so, they become emotional employees, not sovereign men. Machiavelli did not admire consistency. He admired calculation. He did not write of rulers who followed moral scripts, but of those who moved like shadows, adaptive, unreadable, timely. A prince, he argued, must know how to break with virtue when necessity demands it. And in your world, where emotional power is contested in subtle warfare, necessity always demands unpredictability. Predictability gives her the frame. It tells her, he will always care. He will always be there. He will never scare me. At first this seems good, but in her emotional language this says, he is safe. He is done. He is mine. And what is safe and done and mine is also boring. Men lose not because they are unattractive, but because they are static. They do not shift. They do not withhold. They do not disrupt. They follow the script she wrote, and then blame her for not being impressed. But how can she desire what she controls? You must learn to become atmospheric. A storm, unreadable in shape, shifting in rhythm. She must never know if she's in your favor. Never know when you'll go silent. Never know if the attention she receives is privilege or standard. Because that doubt is your leverage. When she texts, delay. When she escalates, withdraw. When she expects softness, deliver stillness. When she tries to provoke, do not defend. Every pattern she hopes to define, interrupt it. Not with anger, with silence, with disinterest, with distance that makes her question if she's still in your world. This is not cruelty, this is value preservation. If she knows exactly what she means to you, she no longer has to earn anything. But if she suspects she's slipping, if she feels her position is unclear, if she starts to wonder whether you are still watching, then she invests. She recalibrates. She works. And the one who works hardest in any relationship is the one who is most deeply hooked. So I say again, predictability is death. If she can predict you, she can play you. But if she cannot find your pattern, she cannot hold your frame. Do you want to be remembered or repeated? Then never be expected. Attention is the currency of power, and the man who spends it too quickly becomes bankrupt in her mind. She does not remember the one who rushed to text back. She does not desire the one who filled every silence. She remembers the man who made her wait, not out of neglect, but out of discipline. You must understand. In the world of psychology and power, what is delayed becomes desired. Machiavelli understood this perfectly. He advised rulers to grant favors slowly, to stretch out reward, to give the people just enough to hope, but never enough to relax. That same rule applies here. Do not rush to feed her ego. Do not pour attention into the void just because she exists. Instead, teach her that your attention is not a faucet but a flame, lit by merit, not routine. Here is how the game begins. She sends a message. You see it, but you wait. Not as punishment, but as positioning. You wait because kings don't scramble. You wait because your time is not subject to urgency. You wait because every minute she wonders why you haven't replied is a minute her desire climbs. That space becomes tension. That silence becomes value. When you delay, you create contrast. You shift from expected to unpredictable. You force her to sit with the thought, did I say too much? Is he pulling away? Why is he not reacting like the others? And suddenly, she is in your frame. But this is not about being cold or fake. It's about being measured. The man who responds instantly to everything has no other priorities. He appears hungry, eager, needy, even if he's not. And desire dies in the scent of need. By delaying, you teach her something vital. Your time is not available on demand. Your energy must be earned, and your presence is a privilege, not a pattern. Let her sweat. Let her stare at her phone. Let her consider her tone. In that uncertainty, you become valuable. In that space, you become remembered. A man who delays attention is a man who controls the rhythm of desire. If she can time your affection like a train schedule, you have already surrendered the frame. Routine is the graveyard of desire. Predictable patterns, no matter how generous, become invisible to the one who receives them, and what is invisible is taken for granted. The second psychological game Machiavelli would demand you master is this: disrupt the pattern. Why? Because emotion lives in contrast. She does not crave your consistency. She craves uncertainty, suspense, the emotional pull of contrast, warmth that disappears, coldness that flickers, presence that is earned. When you become routine, you become background noise, and no woman ever burns for what she expects. Look at history. The most feared rulers, the most desired kings were not consistent. They were unpredictable. They gave favors suddenly, punished without warning, elevated a man in the morning and ruined him by nightfall. This unpredictability did not make them hated, it made them unignorable. Machiavelli praised this. The prince, he said, must know when to turn the current, when to break from rhythm, when to disrupt peace with calculated disturbance. Apply this to your interactions. If you've been texting good morning every day, stop. If she's used to compliments, switch to silence. If she expects your call on Sundays, vanish for one. Do not explain. Do not apologize. Simply shift, break the loop, force her to recalibrate. This is not punishment, it is provocation. It's designed to trigger awareness. Her mind must light up and say, something changed. And in that moment of disturbance, you are no longer passive. You are present. You are on her radar again, not as a giver, but as a question. Most men are afraid to disrupt. They fear losing momentum. But what they fail to understand is that momentum, in attraction, comes not from effort, but from pullback. Too much emotional rhythm without pause becomes lullaby, and lullabies put people to sleep. You don't want her calm, you want her alert, you want her slightly uncertain. That's where desire grows. So, disrupt, not randomly, but surgically. Break the pattern when it becomes expected. Withdraw when she leans in too comfortably. Withhold when she demands. In doing so, you don't weaken connection, you electrify it. Because once she sees you're not afraid to shift the ground beneath her, she will begin to chase solid footing, and that footing is you. If you want to be remembered, don't fade out. Cut the cord at the climax. Most men withdraw when the energy dies, when the conversation drags, when the affection slows. When she's already half gone, that's when they retreat. But Machiavelli would scorn such timing. He understood that influence must end in impact, not in decay. To dominate memory, you must exit after the high point, when she wants more, not when she's had enough. In politics, this tactic is used constantly. A ruler makes a generous decree, wins favor, then disappears from public view, not to be forgotten, but to be idealized. The moment is frozen in glory. He is not seen making mistakes, growing tired, or revealing weakness. His silence sustains his power. Why? Because the last image is the one that lasts. In seduction, the same rule applies. If you want to be remembered, leave at your peak. After the best laugh, the most intimate moment, the most affirming compliment, pull away. Not permanently. Just enough to let the silence amplify what you just gave. The point is not to vanish out of insecurity, but to seal your high-value impression before she can neutralize it with routine. Here's what happens when you do this. She doesn't get closure. She doesn't get emotional digestion. She doesn't get the satisfaction of decay. Instead, she's left in suspense. Why did he go quiet right after that moment? Did I do something? Was he always this brief? And that suspense is not emptiness. It's emotional echo. Your absence isn't silent. It rings in her mind. Men who don't understand this stay too long. They explain. They over-nurture. They let the moment soften, decay, flatten, and then they wonder why the connection fades. But power is not sustained by repetition. It is preserved through mystery, through unexpected distance. When you leave after the high point, she doesn't feel rejected. She feels stimulated. She becomes the one who replays the moment, who texts first, who chases what felt good but ended too soon. And in that chase, her desire grows, because she doesn't want to lose you. She wants to finish what you made her feel. So remember, don't exit when it's easy. Exit when it's perfect. Leave when she still feels high, not when the energy dies. That is how you become unforgettable. Indifference is not rejection. It is control. And the man who learns to mirror it rather than fight it becomes untouchable. Most men respond to female distance with panic. They lean in. They chase. They compensate. But in doing so, they admit dependency. They signal, "Your warmth controls me. Your coldness terrifies me." This is how the frame is lost. Machiavelli would never chase indifference. He would study it. He would meet it with equal silence. Not because he doesn't care, but because he refuses to reward instability. A prince does not beg for loyalty. He observes its absence and adjusts his generosity accordingly. You must adopt the same posture. When she delays, you delay longer. When she grows dry, you grow colder. When her replies go from paragraphs to periods, you vanish into your mission without notice or resentment. This is not pettiness. It is psychological calibration. Because indifference, when not met with correction, becomes a test of your need, a test of your spine, a test of whether her emotional gravity still governs your world. Most men fail it. They double down. They explain. They ask, "Are you okay? Did I do something? Is something wrong?" But every time you seek emotional clarity, you confess one thing: she holds the power. Instead, mirror. If she pulls away, create distance. If she cools the energy, you let it freeze, and you do it without theatrics, without announcements, without passive-aggressive performance. You simply match. Why? Because when she sees that her indifference doesn't shake you, she begins to doubt its effectiveness. And when indifference stops giving her control, she'll recalibrate. In mirroring, you teach her a new emotional law. You do not respond to temperature, you set it. And in that control, you reframe everything. No longer are you chasing her vibe. Now, she's noticing your absence. She's wondering if she pushed too far. She's thinking again. And thinking is the gateway to obsession. Because desire doesn't always need affection. Sometimes it only needs uncertainty. Mirror her indifference, and you'll show her the one thing she never expected from you: emotional immunity. There is no greater amplifier of desire than sudden silence. Not hostility, not sarcasm, not dramatic exits, just silence. Well-timed, undescribed, and heavy with psychological weight. The average man thinks that speaking more secures affection. He talks to repair misunderstandings, to affirm his intentions. to explain away discomfort. But Machiavelli would teach the opposite. Power is preserved not through clarity, but through confusion. Silence introduced at the peak of emotional intensity, whether in flirtation, connection, or conflict, creates one reaction: instability. And in romantic power games, instability is leverage. When a woman expects response and instead receives absence, it forces her inward. She replays the last moment, she questions what she said, she wonders if she ruined it, but more importantly, she begins to focus, not on her control over you, but on your hold over her. Why is silence so powerful? Because it denies her closure, and where closure is denied, obsession is born. This is not cruel, this is psychological architecture. Every moment of attention you give her cements her comfort. Every pause you inject into the interaction reignites her desire. Silence isn't rejection, it's a mirror. It reflects her behavior back at her and asks, was this enough to keep him present? And here is the deeper Machiavellian truth. Silence creates projection. In your absence, she does not see your intentions. She sees her own fears, her own regrets, her own longing. You become not just a man, you become a screen onto which she casts the movie of her mistakes. So how do you use this? You introduce silence precisely when the energy is highest, after she laughs the hardest, after she opens up emotionally, after a night where connection seems most alive. You don't ghost, you vanish strategically. Let the moment ring, echo, hang unanswered in her memory. Make her wonder. Silence isn't just what you don't say, it's what she starts saying to herself when you no longer speak. And if that silence follows emotional elevation, it cuts deeper than words ever could. Let others use compliments and promises. Let them overtalk their position into weakness. You will use silence, not as punishment, but as pressure, as presence, as proof that you are not governed by her rhythm, but by your own. Silence, timed correctly, makes you unforgettable. Silence, timed at the peak, makes you irreplaceable. Once she knows exactly what you want, she controls the tempo. Once she can map your thoughts, predict your next step, decode your signals, your mystery dies, and with it, her obsession. That's why this final game is the most dangerous of all. Never clarify your intentions. Not in romance, not in tension, not in affection. Certainty is a gift for the deserving, and most do not deserve it. Machiavelli warned against transparent leadership. He believed a prince must conceal the full nature of his designs, cloaking ambition beneath a veil of necessity, not because deceit is inherently good, but because clarity removes leverage. When your enemy knows what you will do, he will prepare. When your subject knows your heart, he will no longer fear your decisions. And when a woman knows your aim, she owns the frame. What most men misunderstand is that the desire for transparency does not come from strength. It comes from fear, from the need to be understood, from the desperate impulse to reassure, to be on the same page, to get closure. But every time you clarify, every time you confess, every time you make it obvious, you hand her the script and the ability to end it. Consider this. When she doesn't know if you're fully in, she becomes the one trying to find certainty. When she doesn't know what you think of her, she adjusts. She leans in, she works harder. But the moment you declare, I'm all in, she relaxes. And the emotional game is over. Let your energy speak louder than your words. Let your unpredictability speak louder than your confessions. Flirt with silence. Dance with ambiguity. Become the one question she cannot answer, and she'll never stop trying. Do not lie, but do not explain. Do not fake interest, but never announce it. Do not play hard to get. Simply be hard to know. Let other men give full access, full maps, full emotional confessionals. You give her glimpses, and then you close the door. Because the man who never clarifies becomes the man who lives in her mind, rent-free, unresolved, unmatched. You were taught to be clear, to be kind, to be consistent. But that training made you forget the only game that matters, the psychological game of tension. The man who is chaste is not the man who explains. He is not the man who gives. He is not the man who waits patiently to be chosen. He is the one who remains just out of reach, the one whose silence stings more than another man's praise, the one whose absence is louder than others' presence. If she's certain, she relaxes. If she's confused, she pursues. That is the law. And every chapter you've just heard, every psychological game, is designed for one outcome: emotional control without emotional exposure. Do not be her answer, be her question. Do not be her comfort, be her contrast. Do not be her pattern, be her pause. The man who leaves her wondering is the one she never forgets. Now comment below, I stopped being her answer. Let her chase the silence she created.